How's it going, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On today's Ending Explain, we're looking at Deadstream, where a disgraced internet personality tries to win back his followers by live streaming himself at a real abandoned haunted house. When he accidentally unleashes a vengeful spirit, his comeback event becomes a fight for his life. This comes to us from filmmaking husband and wife duo The Winters, here making quite a splash with their feature film debut. I am a sucker for found footage movies, or technically screen life in this case, as we follow everything presented through our lead character Sean's eventful live stream. Deadstream at its core is a horror comedy, and thankfully it is gut-bustingly funny. A lot of this is thanks to the douchey YouTuber-esque Sean. He's of course completely driven by greed and money, but still somehow comes off as charming and quite humorous. Also played by director and co-writer Joseph Winter. Did the soundtrack too. Jeez, bud. I also really dug the several different monster designs on display, showing off some really excellent practical work and gore. It definitely wears its influences on its sleeve, but does a great job updating them into something new. Sure, there's some obvious throwbacks, but even these are fun for fans of the genre. As far as the story, it does seem to have a fairly straightforward conclusion, but there are some intriguing elements left for us to figure out. So let's check out Deadstream, breaking down the story, including what the curse is all about, and explaining the shocking. We're introduced to the internet personality Sean and a show Wrath of Sean. He basically does challenges to face his fears because, as he says, he loves attention and hates himself. Some examples are him getting smuggled across the border or harassing cops, only to get quickly subdued. He has a big Halloween show planned, but his image has been tarnished by recent scandals. It was bad enough to toss the word canceled around, so it must have been pretty serious. In his eyes, an apology video demolished all of the negativity, and after a time away, he's back and monetized once more, baby! In no small part thanks to his energy drink sponsor, which he is nervous to drink too much of. Don't want to get those caffeine jitters. He claims that he doesn't care about money, but that is clearly not the case, the screen becoming overrun with different merch, now on sale. His whole show is about facing his own fears, but he feels that perhaps he hasn't faced his biggest one yet, as he's terrified of ghosts. He was raised religiously and actually believes that all that kind of stuff is real. Despite his hesitation, for the next stunt, he will be spending one night alone in a haunted house. He knows if there are ghosts there, he is guaranteed to piss them off. He lays out a very important steadfast rule for the show. No matter how afraid he is, he must investigate whatever oddity is occurring. The consequences are pretty grave. If he breaks that rule, he won't get paid. He encourages the audience to tune back in, calling it the biggest comeback since Easter. The front page for the YouTube clone Livid is seen, counting down to Sean's livestream kicking off. An ominous message appears, indicating that Sean went missing, and years later this footage was found. A clear Blair Witch riff, but it's just Sean hawking his latest goods. Oh, and don't forget the custom score that he composed for the evening, also available for purchase right now. He then welcomes everyone to Death Manor, supposedly the most haunted house in America, and where he'll be spending the night. He admits to already being stressed out. He's been having nervous poops all week. Oh boy, ghost poops. Those are scary. Yet he vows no matter what happens to him, he's committed to bringing us the most cinematic experience in all of live stream. Knowing himself too well, he makes sure that leaving won't be so easy by removing the car's spark plugs and tossing them into the woods. As he approaches the derelict building, Sean informs us of its haunted history. It was built back in the early 1900s by a wealthy pioneer for his outcast daughter, a poet called Mildred Pratt. Her death became the first of many in the house, but the mystery remains. Was taking her life what caused the house's curse, or was it already there in the first place? As in the house itself is perhaps the source of the evil. We see just how easily scared Sean is, shrieking at the sight of a little stick man. Yeah, this guy truly is a scaredy cat. He's kind of screwed. He sets up a remote camera outside of the house. They're all motion activated. If something happens, the shot will cut into the feed. So if anything shows up, they will definitely know. Based on the front door having a massive wooden barricade surrounded in barbed wire, somebody doesn't want people getting into the place. But it's easy enough to find another way in, tearing off a barrier, while Sean divulges that being away from the internet really gave him some time to work on himself. Yeah, not sure if I believe that. He tries the handle, and it's surprisingly unlocked. Stepping foot inside, he's already freaking out and sprays some spiders, causing him to squeal once more. He pans around the dust-covered room, and it looks like no one has been here in quite some time, save for rogue graffiti on the walls. To take another layer of precaution, he padlocks the front door and tosses the key down into a grate. There's definitely no getting out until the morning. He continues with the history of the house. After Mildred, 11 more people died before it was boarded up back in 1956. He gets startled again and accidentally swears, pleading with the vivid gods to not strike his video. Hear that, buddy. In another room, it looks like it was being used as a drug den, and Sean is annoyed. Great, swearing and drugs already. He pulls out a makeshift map of the house, and the creepy atmosphere makes him feel like he's in the ring. Yeah, close enough. He explains as he sets up cameras around the house that there are 3 specific rooms he's monitoring, each of which has proof of previous paranormal activity. The first, the master bedroom, has had several sights of a ghost called the Corner Man. The first was back in 1910. Max Rowland, who lived here at the time, had a recurring dream while sleeping in the room. When he would wake up, the Corner Man would be staring from the corner of the room. He couldn't see his face, but he knew that he was watching him. The spirit would whisper the same thing every time: the pond water's still. A year later, he died mysteriously in his sleep in this very room. In 95, a group of investigators were actually able to capture an image of the Corner Man, seeing a clear figure standing there. Sean is already on edge, but a loud thud sends him over the limits. He screeches that he doesn't want to be here anymore, and in the comments is bombarded by people telling him to help the spirits in the house to get rest, and also curious if he's still dating what's-her-face. No, he scoffs annoyed. He takes us to a staircase where Mildred hung herself and clicks on his Death Manor soundtrack mix. From what he has learned, the nearby town wasn't a big fan of Mildred or her poems. It seems that her father built her this house to hopefully attract a husband, but no one wanted her. Poor Mildred. Turns out the downstairs is only the appetizer, as the second floor is the main hub of activity. He moves on to the nursery, where 5 children have previously perished. Sean moans that he always hated creepy kids movies, imagining Haley Joel Osment sitting there, but as an adult. Whew, that is much worse. Strangely, he finds the wind blowing from an open window and wonders if something could have escaped. He shows off more 90s footage featuring ghost hunters utilizing one of their daughters to communicate with the spirits. She refuses to re-enter the room, even when bribed with ice cream. As for why she won't go in, she was told that it wasn't her room. Who told her, they ask, and the girl points, meaning that she saw something back then in the nursery. John acknowledges that it is definitely creepy, but also does not condone using children in such a manner, and touts that he never did in any of his stunts. Well, congratulations. He moves on to the last and most frightening, in his opinion, room, the bathroom. The last known death happened in this bathtub in the 90s. Man, it was pretty hopping back then, apparently. He plays more footage featuring EVP, or electronic voice phenomenon. The theory is that tape can pick up sound frequencies that our ears miss, allowing us to potentially hear spirits talk. That is the case with the 2 guys distinctly hearing mama and pond water, just as Max Rowland mentioned before. He continues the story of Mildred. She lived here for 8 years as a lonely, tortured artist, until one day she met Lars, a wealthy publisher, and they fell in love. For 2 years, they corresponded every day. As for what happened next, you'll have to stay tuned, he teases. There's another room where there has been absolutely no activity, which he decides to be the safe room, aka Wrath of Sean HQ. He screams when seeing a closet. As we all know, ghosts love closets. He knows that he is compelled to check out anything scary and forces himself to look. He digs through the clothes and finds a strange symbol taped to the wall. He doesn't like the sight of it and thinks if something happens to him tonight, it's gonna be because of that thing. Well, you are right about that, Shawnee. The comments want to know more about Mildred, while others request that he provoke the spirits. He argues that just by being here he is, but he did bring along his trademark Wheel of Stupid. He gives it a spin, not noticing someone pointing out the master cam was triggered. The wheel lands on Seance, and Sean agrees, but only on his terms. He then appeases us with the conclusion of Mildred's tale. Lars asked to marry her and move to Boston, and she was excited to leave the small town that she hated. Yet 2 days before the move, Lars mysteriously died, and Mildred went out the next day. According to legend, everyone that died in the house is still here because Mildred is assembling the family that she never got to have. He digs around the room and uses a clown doll to call out to the spirits, "Come to me, I summon thee," and gets a response of creaking around the house. But he isn't sure, is it just the old house sounds or ghost sounds? How do you tell the difference? There's then a much more pronounced thud, sending him fleeing in terror. They don't buy his fear, and he starts to overdramatically gasp and choke, only to reveal it's just a joke, boasting that he always thought he had the chops to make a whole movie starring himself, naturally. He absentmindedly rambles about an ex-girlfriend and takes a leak in a nearby bucket. The comments warn him of something right outside the room. "Run, Sean, corner man," they cry. He still doesn't notice until opening the laptop and the life drains from his face. But then he plays it off as not being real. It's just some foolish photoshoppery. To appease the audience, he scrubs back through the footage, and sure enough, it looks like an apparition is out in the hall. He flips out and takes cover in a closet. "It's real," he shrieks. "Well, now what do we do?" He initially refuses to investigate, but don't forget about those sweet, sweet sponsors, Sean. He tries not to care, but the lure of money gets his spirit going. All he really has to do is walk to the end of the hall and come back. No biggie, right? He shakily gets to his feet and equips himself from objects courtesy of his ghost hunting toolkit. He enters the hall to more loud thuds, and another nearby door swings open wider, inviting him inside. He tries to keep his nerves, hearing definite footsteps running behind the walls and coming right to the door in front of him. He screeches and hides in the other room, barricading the door, the whole time bewildered by what's happening. It's real! In frustration, he he destroys that picture and demands to know what the spirits want. Well, he probably didn't want you to destroy that. Oh well. He arms himself with a piece of wood and they pull at the door. Too bad it opens the other way, meaning his blockade was for nothing. It surprisingly is just some excited girl, Chrissy, clearly starstruck when seeing Sean. He's confused how she even got here. It's supposed to be a secret, but he is so happy to see another human that he can't help but give her a big hug. She says he accidentally gave away his secret location and she just wanted to come out and help him do some ghost hunting. Innocent enough, right? Sean wants to leave. Even the money isn't alluring enough for him at this point. Chrissy can't believe it, especially considering the record views. He hasn't seen the numbers recently, and it's well over 3 million now. With that, in spite of his fears, they decide to stay. He speaks to his sponsors directly, excusing himself from her showing up. It had nothing to do with him. She agrees, and he gets her GoPro'd up, using her as a reverse view of what's behind him as they traverse the house. She suggests that he should be acting a little more excited, which gets under Sean's skin, chiding her for fansplaining. They come to the bedroom door, and Chrissy's camera goes fuzzy. He spins back, and she's vanished. He goes to search around the house, and she pops back up, laughing the whole thing off. He's upset and lays a new rule of never splitting up again. He checks out the plant cams, and it looks like the coast is clear. They look around the bedroom, and he scolds Chrissy for getting in the corner man's spot. That's his! Don't be disrespecting ghosts. Something scares her in the closet, and they discover a hole in the wall which goes back some ways. He tears away the false wall, exposing an ominous staircase. They go down without a second thought, wondering why it was boarded up. It looks like an old cellar, and they come across a suitcase. Inside is what sure looks like Mildred's old clothes, along with a locked jewelry box which he pockets. Then there's something even more interesting, Mildred's old journal. He's excited. They might have uncovered the secret of the house, but it's just her collection of, well, fairly bland love poems. Chrissy disagrees, thinking that they're super cool and wants him to keep reading. Before they can explore further, Mummified Dog sends them running from the scene. There's another suggestion to do the wheel, and this time Sean is excited, letting Chrissy do the spinning. It ends up right on the line, and she thinks that it means they're actually supposed to do both. So they set out a spirit board for a seance and a tape recorder to capture EVP. She wants to read more of the poems, but he puts his foot down. He's in charge around here. He addresses the spirit of the house, requesting to speak with the children's spirits. He turns the floor over to Chrissy, who asks how her spiritual children are doing. Were any of you killed by a spirit called Mildred, they ask, and pan around in anticipation of a response. Since there isn't one, Chrissy says she has a surefire way to get the ghosts a chattering, starting to chant something in Latin. Sean wisely refuses to repeat words said in a language he doesn't understand, but she assures him that it's designed to give the spirits rest. He buys it and goes along with her whole back and forth. There's a booming knock, and the motion sensors pick up something in the bathroom. She's eager to check it out, but he has lost his nerve completely at this point. The audience quickly turns on him, saying that she's braver than him and calling him names. Chrissy pops in and cryptically tells him, don't worry, she has a feeling soon they won't have to worry at all. Wonder what she means by that. He still elects for the coward's way, convincing her to go in his stead. It doesn't break the rules because she's choosing to go. You know, whatever you say, dude. He monitors her going upstairs, and the planchette flies off the board. He checks the cam, and Chrissy's signal has gone fuzzy again. He gets himself together and sets out in search of her. He ventures upstairs, and there's still no sign of her until she gets the big jump on him. She again tries to say that it was just a joke, but Sean has started to get weirded out. How did she disappear so fast? How does she even know where to hide? Has she been here before? He officially uninvites her from the expedition, and the shoe drops. Chrissy begins to cackle demonically and chomps down on his neck. He fells her with a pointy stick, but the wound is much more severe than he was anticipating. He checks on her, and yep, she's dead. Sean grasps what just happened and rushes to the computer, confessing to what he did. Please send the cops, someone. It was an accident. Yet a situation only gets more complicated when he returns to where her body was, and she's gone. In case it wasn't obvious, she's not a person, but a spirit of the house. But who, we're not quite sure yet. He follows a trail of blood, squeaking he's going to leave her a first aid kit. Yeah, that'll do it. There's a wave of loud noises from above, sending dust falling through the holes. What the hell was that, he asks, and turns the camera to Mildred in the flesh. He runs back to his favorite hiding spot, the closet, and really can't believe what's happening here. It's a real life ghost lady trying to kill him or something. In the comments, he gets the full scoop on that drawing he destroyed earlier, which it turns out was his entire undoing. Oopsies. It's a protection ward called a Hamza, used to keep evil away. It must have been used to keep the evil of the house contained, and it was working until he destroyed it. Major whoops. The kids start gushing about being a big fan, and Sean coldly closes his clamshell. He comes to terms with the fact that he unleashed Mildred and he won't be able to leave the house. Although, if she did have the power to kill him, probably wouldn't have done it by now, a commenter chimes in. He agrees and decides to try and slink by her, great plan, seeing her still right outside the door. He creaks it open, but no Mildred. He keeps checking his camera and dropping the feeds back to reality. He's going back and forth with the tablet. He backs into a wall and she appears right in front of him. Mildred chuckles and jumps on his head, laughing more. She chokes him out and jams a finger right up his nostril, really digging in there. Wow, I just took a massive jump into Evil Dead 2 territory out of nowhere. Camp alert, people! He flings her off and scrambles towards the stairs. She leaps on his back and he flips her, sending her tumbling down the staircase. He makes a break for the door, but of course it's locked, so he has no choice but to start digging around in that grate. He notices that Mildred got him pretty good with her nail. He does retrieve a key, but it's not his, more resembling one for the jewel box that he found. The comments consider the same, and although he doesn't know how it would help, he does try the key. It's a fit, inside finding a picture of Mildred, and finally puts together that she and Chrissy are one and the same. Yeah, try to keep up, Sean. Jeez. There's another bundle of something foul that he tosses away on sight. Must be important if it was hidden like that, just saying. The audience urge him to get out of there. Why not use that convenient nearby rope? The couch scrapes in front of Sean, and he shakily crawls around. He spots someone passing by and sneaks back upstairs. He feverishly ties the rope around a bed in the nursery, but is stopped in his tracks by a child shape crawling under the sheets. They lunge, and he attempts to escape, but doesn't make it too far thanks to the rope around his waist. What a dumbo. He gets loose and seeks refuge in yet another closet. He's really losing it now, and another video from the audience does little to assuage his fears. She owns you now, it warns. It's a professor lady who translated the Latin that he said with Chrissy earlier. She lied, and what he actually did was agreed to give her his soul and forfeit his will. He doesn't want to die, and some comments tell him perhaps that this is karma for what he did. He argues that he did nothing wrong, and he apologized because he had to. He lost everything, and he was acquitted, by the way, scoffing that everyone seems to forget that aspect. The comments keep harassing him, and Sean finally gets real for a fleeting moment. He says he's sick of apologizing, and even regrets his big apology video that got him back in good graces. He defends that he didn't even know the guy was sick, mentioning something about bum fighting. Yeah, that doesn't sound very good. A woman's voice speaks his name, and he pulls back the blanket, revealing Mildred's head. Guilty, she growls and bites at his crotch. Okay, now that's right out of Evil Dead. Bites his hand, not his crotch, but same exact thing. He punches at her head and decides to make a daring and stupid leap of faith right out of the upstairs window. After he lands, he gets his bearing and finds his leg is severely wounded. He cleans it up and wraps it up in duct tape. Growling from the house burns him back to his feet. He rushes to the car, but no spark plugs. He scavenges the woods and quickly finds one. The other isn't too far away, but he is startled by a snarling from a weird long-faced creature. What the hell is that thing? He runs and clumsily trips all over himself. And then there's a cop waiting for him out of nowhere who even knows his name. Could this perhaps finally be his salvation? Probably not, since we've already seen Chrissy and Mildred can kind of change their appearances. No reason whatsoever to trust this guy. Sean at least picks up on the strangeness quickly, wondering where his car is. The cop tells him that he's been watching the show. It's some good stuff. But he doesn't like it when Sean hurts people. He asks, is that what this is all about? And refutes that he ever hurt anyone on purpose. He kicks the cop in the jewels and hoofs it back to the car. The growls continue, and he is unable to see anything outside in the darkness. Thusly, he MacGyvers a camera rig, mounting it to the end of a Slim Jim, labeling it Beef Cam. He cautiously slides it out the window crack and now can see all around his surroundings. The cop is there, writhing and grunting in a bizarre manner. In the comments, they figured out his real identity is Max, the guy who first told us of the corner man. Another has tracked down the lady that actually made the Hamza in the house. She lived in the Pratt house as a nanny back when she was 15 years old. A vengeful spirit named Mildred came after her, and she created the ward to keep her powers at bay. They inform Hetty that the Hamza was destroyed, and she's like, uh-oh, you are screwed, dude. John hopes that they can teach him to make a new one, and they better hurry, seeing the cop is getting to his feet. The reason why Mildred has so much power, it turns out, is that she sold her soul to the devil. As such, the new Hamza must be of equal power. Oh, and don't forget that the devil always betrays you. Kind of his whole thing, right? King of lies or whatever. As with all counter-vigils, this will require a sacrifice of flesh. The car gets aggressively shaken, and Sean searches for a real weapon. He settles on a Wrath of Sean potato gun. Zombie Max puts his face on the window, grumbling for his license and registration. Sean loads the cannon with a bobblehead of himself, while he keeps bashing his head on the glass. It suddenly ceases, and the ghoul surprises him from the other side. They get right on top of him, growling his name, and he fires right into his chest. Max falls over and slides right down the barrel, getting alarmingly close to his face. He's excited for the internet to have seen his heroic moment, but his tablet is smashed, meaning he doesn't know if he's even streaming anymore. Oh no, all that for nothing. He holds up in the car and laments his bad luck. This was supposed to help repair his image. He doesn't want to go out being remembered as a douchebag. I'm sorry, he proclaims to the heavens, but knows no one can can hear him. He decides to write a note and goes for Mildred's journal. A page drops out depicting the unholy hand of power, offering to influence others with the power of your words. He realizes this must be the same ritual she used to sell her soul and flips through the pages for more answers. He finds a biggie that completely changes Mildred's motivations. In one of her poems, he comes across the phrase "pond water still," the same passage which Max uttered before, also heard with the investigator guys in the 90s. Sean pieces together, it's not a family that Mildred wants, but an audience, and she's actually forcing the trapped spirits to remember her work. Even though he calls her a weirdo, he can actually relate to this in his own strange way. Isn't that what he so furiously pursues at all costs? By that same token, it must be as she collects more souls that Mildred grows more powerful. He tries to think of a way to trump that and has a clever answer: a copyright strike. So what if he puts a strike on her? Forget the Hamza. If he does this same ritual, he can get his soul back. He convinces himself based on absolutely nothing. He requests for the audience to translate the Latin from the page and cranks on his soundtrack mix. It's time to demonetize this bitch. He grabs a big log and battering rams the door, screaming triumphantly when it bursts open. He takes a knife from his toolkit and tapes it to a mop along with some garlic on the end. Sure, why not? They could be vampires, who knows? He procures some of the dirty syringes, filling them with holy water, and don't forget that big ass cleaver too. He shouts for Mildred, trying to relate to her. He understands why she does what she does, but in the words of his manager, she's taking things too far. Way too far. He turns away, hearing something, and behind him, Mildred climbs through the ceiling. He pants his way upstairs, coming to a strange rope dangling there. He makes it back to his HQ, and is relieved to learn that he is still streaming. Yet discourse has changed once more. The public thinks it's fake, and the police don't believe the wild story either. Well, looks like you're on your own, pal. He hears a distant child crying and addresses the audience. He knows that he's not going to make it out of here alive, and thanks them all for the support. The truth is, he's known for a while that he was crossing the line. If he could go back and change it, he would. He then gives a seemingly real apology. As for paying the homeless man to fight him, he didn't think that he could actually hurt him. He apologizes not just for that, but even coming up with the idea in the first place. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. He comes clean for his many transgressions, racial and otherwise, and in a misguided attempt to make up for his past, also proving that he has not truly learned and grown at all, he dedicates this broadcast to the blacks and the Mexicans, which proves once more that he doesn't get it. He gets another camera and sticks it right on the tip of his makeshift spear and waits for Mildred on the haphazard Hamza symbol. She doesn't come, and he's forced back out into the house. He starts reading a poem of hers, and thunder rumbles. He continues reading, commenting that some of these are pretty good. Matt! Shuffling comes from the nursery, and he enters the room. He discovers a kid sitting away on the bed, cooing, "I'm not gonna hurt you." And he asks, "Mommy's a little crazy, right?" The boy turns to face him, revealing a hideous monster growing out of his body. He runs outside, splashing salt at the door, hearing Mildred skittering up above. "Shawnee," she taunts, "come and get me." They argue back and forth. "You come here." "No, you." "No, opposite." He checks the monitors and spots Cornerman nearby. Sean tries to attack him, even though he can't see him, and does get him with the spear. Cornerman turns the tables on him and gets him in the leg. Sean feebly tosses a garlic bulb at him to no effect, decrying that it's bullshit before fleeing. He holes up in another room, and Chrissy is heard on the other side with a normal sounding voice. "I'm scared, you really hurt me bad," she whimpers. He knows better, telling Mildred that is not gonna work. He asks the internet for help, but unfortunately his battery starts fluttering away. Mildred tells him someone wants to come meet him in the dark. Sean comes back too, losing his battle with her, his eyes now glazed over white, and he realizes that he's in the dirty tub to his confusion. He chuckles strangely that it feels so good, and reaches down into the bubbling water. He yanks out an eyeball, which he gratefully munches down. The pond water is still," he says flatly, clearly under her influence. She attacks him, plunging him repeatedly under the water. He fights back, growling, "I'm the influencer." He smacks himself, and his eyes are back to normal. Presumably, he has broken her trance. A shriveled creature emerges from the depths and grabs at him. He wraps it up in the shower curtain and jams the holy water needle right in its eye. It spazzes out for a moment before ceasing, to Sean's delight. Garlic may not work, but holy water sure does. The creature explodes, covering him in custardy goo, and really taking the sails out of his moment of victory. Thanks, Custard. He vows to kill Mildred again and checks the camera. Nothing much going on there, but he knows it's not always that straightforward. So he tries to lure her out and tosses her book outside. He sees it starting to slide around on the ground, and Sean tries to hack off her hands. She appears from above, launching right on top of him. She bashes his head into the ground and digs deep into his wounds, cackling in glee the whole time. He manages to retrieve the hatchet, planting it right into her skull. Mildred slumps down motionless, and what better way to track her than giving her very own GoPro. Mildred Cam! She's still convulsing around, and he weakly crawls away. Mildred groans to follow him, and picks up the tape deck along the way to put on some music to set the scene. She laughs when seeing his shoddy Hamza symbol, and then spots his legs poking out from behind the desk. It was just a ruse, and a pantsless Sean gets the jump on her with a desk. He drags her into the symbol, and attaches her to the ground with his precious duct tape. Not sure that's gonna work. He begins to excitedly read the ritual. He says something about having the authority of the house, and bind them to me, causing Mildred to laugh, and she undoes her restraints with ease. Still doesn't grasp what he's saying, and she takes him out in one punch. She then gives him a deranged Three Stooges torture special. First, she jams her finger up his other nostril, why not, got a match. She then sprays him in the face with his bug spray, and tops it off by waterboarding him with his own piss turn. Pretty gross. He pushes her off, trying to keep her from moving with a cinder block, but it barely even slows her down. Her bones creak, and she crawls after, laughing for Shawnee. He slides down the stairs quite gracefully, and she's not too far behind. Sean is confused. What happened? He said the words, right? Mildred warns that she's on her way, and also uncontrollably plummets down the stairs. What does she want? He asks, and comes to the comments where some think that she is hot, and others are just calling him doomed. Well, thanks everybody. He comes to that object from the box, which we now see clearly is Mildred's finger. This reminds him of the whole important sacrifice of flesh thing, and does the ritual again, goading Mildred that he's gonna put a ripple into her pond water. He completes the words, Mildred munching at his feet, and takes off his finger with the cleaver. Mildred reaches out for him, but is quickly dragged by a force under the floor, disappearing in a sea of red-tinged water. The house appears to consume her, letting out a belch, and vomits up blood spray from the hole. Sean is still on edge, and then thinks he's finally victorious. He bandages his finger with more duct tape, and returns to his audience. He proclaims, they did it. We beat the house together. He starts getting emotional. Suck on that, Huffington Post. He proudly restates what he did from the beginning. He does his best to provide the highest quality live stream around. I, Sean Ruddy, am once again #1. However, his victory is short-lived, as he didn't exactly understand what he just did. The child creature comes out whispering for his mama. More come out joining them, seeing him as their new mama. The woods creature pops out, and the stream ends for good. The connection is lost. Well, looks like there's a new caretaker at the old Pratt house. Clearly he was tricked and lied to, just as the old lady warned, but it is worth pointing out this outcome is entirely his own fault. First, it was destroying the ward that summoned Mildred specifically. Sure, you can see the corner ghosts and things like that, but after this, things really changed. Then also at the end, he finds a ritual paper in her journal, and for some reason thinks that this will save him. There is no reason to think this beyond that he convinces himself of it. What actually happens after he cuts off his own finger, just as Mildred did, he has officially completed the ritual and sold his soul, albeit accidentally. Just shows how much of a fool Sean really is, and that he also never truly became self-aware enough in the end to save himself. I'm sure that's why it seems reasonable that he deserves his fate, so to speak. And he also doesn't actually die, he's just the new house mama. This helps us to further clarify Mildred's initial desires. She must have sold her soul in order to gain a husband and someone to help with her poems. Hence, boom, some successful dude shows up to woo her out of nowhere, only to die mysteriously. It's obviously another setup and lie courtesy of the devil. Sure, I'll give you what you desire, but with, terrible strings attached, really can't trust that guy. Although we don't know what will become of Sean. Again, he is still alive and did just have a hugely successful broadcast. I actually imagine now more than ever, more and more people will be trying to find the Pratt house. So maybe Sean will be more popular than ever with his ghost co-host? I don't know. But will the house continue to claim more victims? Probably. You're just kind of stuck there forever, Sean. Sorry. That brings us to the conclusion of this ending explained for Deadstream. But don't forget, before we go, you can send me requests for any movies or TV shows you'd like to see me explain by sending them to any of my social media accounts at FoundFlix. What did you think of Deadstream and its ending? What do you think happens next? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.